and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And welcome to this week's weekly recap. Again, just going over the twin Catsketball teams, starting off with the women's team, but I will make a really quick announcement. Next week will be the release of our long-awaited Batcats preview. And we must say that we are quite excited for the Batcats to start up. They're getting a lot of preseason hype, deservedly so. I believe D1 Baseball called this the team with the most weird arm angle guys in the country, which I'll take that compliment, especially given how weird arm angles interacted with us last year. But just look forward to that episode. But until then, I'm going to start off with the women's Catsketball team. First game that they had was the Sunflower Showdown up against the University of Kansas in Manhattan. And this was the first game, I believe, without Ayoka Lee, who is going to be out for, I believe, 4 weeks for the foreseeable future, which is a massive loss. But I think these two games proved that the team doesn't just fall apart without her. The Cats ended up winning 69-58, But yeah, this was the first game without Lee, so I just kind of want to know how you felt generally about it, because you were there.
Yeah, this was a fun game. K-State really controlled a lot of this game. There were a few times where it got closer, especially in the second half. But every time the KU made a run, K-State would just re-extend the lead. And they played really well. It definitely helps that last year we got a ton of experience playing without Ayoka Lee. So this wasn't the first time that we've done it, even though it was the first time this year. But it was a gritty win against a quality team. And we had players step up where they were necessary. And the crowd was great. It ended up being about 9,600. And it was a really involved crowd as well. And I was happy about that. The student section, general admission, was pretty much completely packed by the time I got there. Traffic was kind of backed up on Kimball as well, which that was a little frustrating, but it's good.
You take it for what it means.
Yeah, but it's so good that because it means that so many people were coming to watch. But it was a really fun time, really enjoyable. Of course, we're banking on Ayoka Lee not spending a ton of time out, but this game and the one following, I think they both showed pretty clearly that this team can win without Ayoka Lee. So this was a pretty quality win. I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, because although KU is, I believe, 9-9 after losing this game, they do have some quality wins. They did end up beating a really quality Baylor team, which we'll talk about in a minute. But, do you want starters or do you want bench players?
You can take the starters.
All right. So, of course, the leading scorer in this game was Serena Sundell, who played 39 minutes, 6 of 9 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3, 1 of 2 under free throws with 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 turnovers, 3 blocks, 3 steals, 15 total points. This was one of those games where I think you and I talked about, maybe just personally, but Serena Sundell needs to realize that she's capable of taking over a game, because when in the games that she does that, it is beautiful to watch her just be better than everyone else.
Yeah. And she kind of did at times in this game, and she still played really great. I mean, no fouls in 39 minutes is really difficult to do. But she, I think, is kind of understanding her role now, because last year there was more deference to Gabby Gregory, but Gabby didn't have the greatest day, and also was injured at one point in the game, so a lot of the offense fell to Serena.
Yeah. Which the second leading scorer is a name you don't often hear as the second leading scorer, at least from the starters, and that is Briley Glenn. 36 minutes, 4 of 11 from the field, 2 of 6 from 3, perfect on her 3 free throw attempts, 4 rebounds, 1 foul, 1 assist, 2 steals, 13 total points. Jalen Glenn, 37 minutes, 3 of 4 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3. Perfect on her 2 free throw attempts, 6 defensive rebounds, 3 fouls, 2 assists, 4 turnovers, 9 points. Gabby Gregory, 18 minutes, 0 of 8 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3, 4 of 4 from the free throw line. And again, she did get hurt, so take that for up and down as much as it would be. 1 rebound, 3 fouls, 1 assist, 4 points. And then rounding out the starting 5 is Gisela Sanchez. 17 minutes, 2 of 9 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3, 4 rebounds, 3 fouls, 3 assists, 2 turnovers, and 4 total points. So you take that starting production, especially, someone had to step up in the absence of Ayoka Lee. This time it was Serena Sendell and Briley Glenn from the starters, but there are 2 names that were really, really exciting coming off of the bench. One we're familiar with for this year, and the other we haven't seen a lot of this year, but we saw a lot of last year.
Yeah, so leading off with Ziana Walker, she played 28 minutes and was 4 of 8 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3, and made 5 out of her 6 free throws, and she finished with 15 points off the bench. So very high production for Walker off the bench, which that's what we've been asking of her all years, to be an offensive spark plug, and that's what she's been doing. She had 4 rebounds, 2 fouls, and a turnover, but really otherwise played quite well. Then, of course, Eliza Maupin. She played 18 minutes and had her best game on the year. Went 3 of 3 from the field, 2 of 4 at the free throw line, finished with 8 points. And she added 5 rebounds, 3 fouls, a turnover, and 2 steals. That's a lot of what you get with Eliza Maupin, is she just rises above people to get buckets at the rim, but she is also really foul prone, so 3 fouls in 18 minutes isn't great, but she still was really, really good. But then there were 2 other players that played. Taryn Sides played 4 minutes, 1 of 2 at the free throw line, 2 fouls, and then Amani Lester played 3 minutes, and somehow took 3 shots in those 3 minutes, then had a foul and a steal. She clearly has a lot of skill, but or a lot of athleticism, but just is still got a long way to go in terms of refining her game.
It's like Eliza last year.
Yeah, so she's not in the same athletic universe as Eliza, but
no one is.
Yeah, so but she's I'm still coming along fine, but Eliza really had a nice game in this one, as well as Ziana Walker.
Yeah. So this was the first game without Ayoka Lee, but the next game arguably was more important. I think we called this a prove it game, because this was when K-State entered number 4 in the country going into this game, going up against a ranked 13th at the time Baylor squad in Waco without Ayoka Lee. So this was a massive prove it game for the Midi Cats, and it didn't start off great at all, actually. But what matters is that K-State rallied at the end, ended up winning 58-55 in Waco in a pretty solid environment, in a come-from-behind fashion, in a gritty game. And I think the best teams, great teams will win, and they'll win games that you don't think they should. But I think the best teams find ways to escape games that they shouldn't really win. I think this game also proved that this team is a whole lot more than just Ayoka Lee. And I think it took a minute for the team in this game to figure that out.
Yeah, because we started off really struggling, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We gave up 39 in the first half, which is very unlike us, and it was pretty much all but guaranteed that we were going to end our streak of holding opponents under 60. But then we came out with a just defensive masterclass in the second half and held Baylor to 16 points in the entire second half, and they only finished with 55, which is pretty incredible to lock in that way defensively after the first half that we had, where we were just really getting diced up. And it's a credit to the adjustments from the staff as well, where they were just a lot faster than our guards, and we're just penetrating very easily. But we switched to a zone and decided to use our long arms to our advantage, because that's where we have the advantage over Baylor. They have the speed, but we have the length. And so we took that and made it into an advantage for us. because we've been running a lot more man this year, but switching to a zone that was very timely in the second half, and it clearly threw Baylor off their game. But getting into the starters, Serena Sundell, she went 5 of 9 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, and 5 of 8 at the free throw line. Finished with 16. Had 5 rebounds, 2 fouls, 3 assists. Did have 8 turnovers, which is pretty bad. 1 block, and then 4 steals. So she ended up having a really good game, sans the turnovers.
She also turned her ankle, which activated her X factor.
Yeah, she did turn her ankle late in the first half. So once again, at this point, when I see her get an injury and come off the floor, I just kind of expect that she's coming back at some point. But she played fairly well, really, really well, and had some big buckets for us down the stretch. Gabby Gregory, she played 31 minutes, 6 of 11 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3. Did go 1 of 3 at the free throw line, which needs to improve, which kind of across the board. Free throw shooting's been worse for us this year than it was last year. But she also finished with 16 points. Then she had 4 rebounds, 2 fouls, 4 assists, 3 turnovers, and a steal of her own. She had some huge buckets late in the game, where we went to kind of using her like we did last year, where we kind of threw her in the post at times. But she did a really good job kind of readjusting there and playing some really tough basketball. Then Jalen Glenn, she played all 40 minutes, went 2 of 8 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, finished with 5 points, and had 6 rebounds, 1 foul, 2 assists, a block at the very end of the game, and 2 steals. That block was massive because that was a block on Baylor's final 3-point attempt of the game to try and tie it and send it to overtime, and she didn't even let it go anywhere. Then Bradley Glenn, she played 27 minutes, 1 of 5 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3, and 1 of 2 at the free throw line. So she just had 3 points, but she had a rebound, an assist, 2 turnovers, and 4 steals as well. The Glenn Twins played, as usual, fantastic defense along with the rest of the lineup, but they in particular always just so valuable defensively. And then rounding out the starting lineup was Gisela Sanchez, and it was clear that she was just kind of outmatched by this Baylor squad. She just she doesn't match up with them very well because this Baylor team is built on speed and quickness, and that just isn't Gisela's game. She only played 5 minutes and had 3 fouls, so we barely saw her in this game just because it just was a matchup nightmare for her.
Yeah. And before we get into the bench players, I think 2 things are worth mentioning. One is related to Gisela Sanchez. They were really quick on the whistle, especially during the first half. The second is the first half was the most unacceptable broadcast I think we have seen in our time doing the show. Mm-hmm. There's no justifying what happened at all.
No. I mean, it was pretty horrible. Luckily in the second half it was fine, but I imagine a lot of people that would have been watching stopped watching because of that. They were lucky I had homework to procrastinate, or else I probably would have stopped watching too. So, no, it was pretty embarrassing. Especially for such a high-profile game. I mean, this was a top 15 matchup, and it was a tight game for most of the way, too. And they just didn't really seem to treat it that way, which was a little disappointing.
Yeah. But who wasn't disappointing is Eliza Maupin, who you and I have probably been some of the highest people on Eliza Maupin since she committed to K-State. But she just exploded this game. 29 minutes, 6 of 6 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, 9 rebounds, 4 of them being offensive, 2 fouls, 1 turnover, 1 block, 1 steal, 16 total points. Wow. This was the Eliza Maupin coming out party. And honestly, I think there were times that points were left on the floor because we're still, our guards aren't used to seeing Eliza Maupin just outrun everyone.
Yeah, I think in the perfect world, this game for Eliza Maupin is like Dean Wade's game against Iowa State when he was a junior, I think, where he just out of nowhere dropped 35 on Iowa State and figured out, oh, wait, I'm more athletic than everyone. I guess I can just do this whenever I want. I hope this is Eliza Maupin's game. Of course, you can tell that the confidence is really brimming for her right now as well, because she stepped out and attempted the first 3 of her career, which When she committed, we watched her high school huddle, and she was taking plenty of threes in her high school tape. It's just not something she's really done at the college level. And she hits the very first one that she ever attempts, and just outmatched everybody on Baylor. And like we've said so much, whenever she's on the floor, she's the most athletic player on the floor. And that was obviously true in this game against Baylor. She was the catalyst for us coming back and winning this one. And I think that she's really proven herself as probably, until Ayoka Lee gets back, probably being in the starting lineup. I understand if they want to keep her as a spark plug off the bench, though, depending on matchups. But I was thoroughly impressed with Eliza Maupin.
Yeah. The rest of the bench was so-so. Zy Walker played 21 minutes, 1 of 7 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3, with 3 rebounds, 2 fouls, 2 assists, 3 turnovers, and 1 steal for 2 total points. None of the other bench players scored. Terrence Sides played 5 minutes, attempted 1 3, had 1 foul, 1 assist to 2 turnovers. Monty Lester played 3 minutes, 1 foul, 1 block, and then Heavenly Greer played a single minute and caught a foul. Heavenly Greer and Amani Lester are just casualties of Eliza Maupin deciding that she was just going to go off.
Yeah, I think that's especially true for Heavenly Greer, because Lester still has youth on her side and has been contributing in other ways, and Greer, I think, still has a long way to go in terms of cleaning up her defense, because I think she's a really great instinctual defender, but she just fouls a lot. And that just sometimes is a problem for people that are as good of athletes as Heavenly Greer is. But, no, I mean, the bench outside of Maupin wasn't fantastic. Zyna Walker gave us 21 good, okay minutes, but she did have some bad misses. She missed, a wide-open layup in transition at one point, and that was pretty bad. She made up for it a little later. She made a tough layup in transition, but still not her best game, especially coming off of her KU performance. But I'm not really worried about Zyna Walker. We've seen enough consistency from her that this was just an off night.
Yeah.
But Sides, Lester, and Greer, they didn't have major contributions. But, of course, the hallmark is Eliza Maupin. She's the story to take away from this game, I think. I don't think it's close either.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is, again, beating a top 15 in the country team away from home without your best player. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. It's got us all the way up to number 2 in the coaches poll at this point, and they've earned that ranking. Depending the outcome of the South Carolina LSU game, could have an argument for number 1 once we get to next week, but remains to be seen for now. I don't want to put the cart before the horse on that, but
yeah, plus we still got to beat the next few teams.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of, the next game for the K-State women is in Manhattan, Kansas, going up against BYU. Connor and I will be in attendance in this game. It'll be my first game for attended this year for the women's team. No, I will not be wearing the goat pajamas. $70 was not worth it for a bit. But then after that, next Wednesday is playing at Oklahoma. And we mentioned earlier in the season that the Oklahoma-Texas stretch was very important. Fun fact, the Oklahoma-Texas stretch part 2 is still very important, because both of those are away games. And if you win both of those games, there's not much standing in the way of a regular season Big 12 title if you win those 2 games. If you lose one of those games, you still control your own destiny, and you still have the inside track. If you lose both, that's when you start sweating it a little bit. The upside is that I think K-State has a very good chance of winning at least one of those games, just because of what they showed up against Baylor. I think Baylor genuinely might have been the best team left on the schedule, especially given Texas's injury problems. Are they the best matchup? No, I think Texas is a worse matchup. But I think Baylor is the better and more talented team.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. I still don't love the matchup with Texas, but yeah, it's a massive stretch. The games after the Oklahoma and Texas game that I think we need to pay extra attention to as fans when we're tracking the Big 12 title race is our two matchups with Iowa State because they are, I believe, just a one-loss team right now in Big 12 play. They're very young, but they're very talented, and I'd like to sweep Iowa State. I think we're a better squad than they are, but we just need to really avoid getting swept by Iowa State, if nothing else, because with a team like Iowa State, I imagine they'll trip up at some point, but let's just avoid doing that ourselves. Let's just win out in my book. But the matchups against Iowa State will be difficult, and of course the road matchups against OU and Texas, those will be difficult as well. At KU is not going to be easy either. I imagine Aoka Lee's probably back by then.
She's projected to be back by Iowa State, the first game.
Yeah. So conservative estimates even would have her back then probably by the KU game. So hopefully she's back on schedule for that Valentine's Day matchup at Iowa State. But it'll be interesting to track and keep our eyes on because we're at the point in the season where right now we really do kind of control our own destiny in terms of the Big 12 regular season crown. So because we've gotten ahead of Texas just lost as well to Oklahoma the night before we recorded this. So we've got a little bit of a cushion there. Just need to kind of wait and see what happens with Iowa State. Remains to be seen, though.
Yeah. So that's the women's team, but before we move on to the men's team, here's a quick word from today's sponsor. And welcome back to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Now we're going to be talking about the men's Catsketball team in the first matchup of two. I'm not sure how much longer or how long we'll spend on the second one for our own sanity. But the first of the two was up against Oklahoma State in Bramlage Coliseum. A not good Oklahoma State team, I think is putting it generously. But K-State ended up barely beating them 70-66, requiring some late game heroics. And first off, probably shouldn't have gotten to that point. Not with this team and how not good they are. But hey, you take dubs as they come to you. But going down in half, down 4 after not playing particularly well in the first half and then kind of trudging through most of the second half. It's just, sometimes this team doesn't appear like it has much life to it. And I think that's the worst part about it. But just going into the starters, Arthur Kaluma played 38 minutes, 7 of 12 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3, 6 of 9 on his free throw attempts, 7 rebounds, 2 fouls, 4 assists, 5 turnovers, 2 blocks, 3 steals, 23 points. So he stuffed the stat sheet. Cam Carter, 37 minutes, 5 of 9 from the field, 3 of 7 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 3 fouls, 2 assists, 4 turnovers, 15 total points. Will McNair, 25 minutes, 5 of 6 from the field, 5 rebounds, 3 fouls, 2 assists, 1 turnover, 1 block, 10 total points. Tyler Perry, 30 minutes, 2 of 6 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, 4 of 5 from the free throw line, 2 fouls, 5 assists, 2 turnovers, 2 steals, 9 total points. And then David Gasson, 24 minutes, 2 of 3 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3, as we all know him as the deep sharpshooter of the team. David Gasson, 5 rebounds, 4 fouls, 2 assists, 1 turnover, 2 steals, 5 total points. So again, you have the usual suspects in both ways. You have the usual suspects of good, as in Arthur Kaluma and Cam Carter, and you have the usual suspect of horrendously disappointing, who I don't feel like needs to be even named at this point.
Yeah, this is kind of a pretty standard game, other than Kaluma, I think, had a better game than normal. Cam Carter He was pretty solid, especially in the second half. But Kaluma going off for 23. I mean, he pretty much willed this team to victory on his own. He was fantastic. He's been shooting so well in Big 12 play. But yeah, this was a game that was definitely way closer than it needed to be. Then in terms of bench production, it was pretty mixed. Day-Day Ames had 15 minutes, 2 of 5 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3. Finished with 4 points. Then had a rebound, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, and a steal. RJ Jones, he went 1 of 4 from the field in 11 minutes, just 2 points. He had a mid-range jumper early in the game, and then had 1 rebound. Jarrell Colbert also played 11 minutes, 1 of 1 from the field with so just those 2 points, 1 rebound, 4 fouls, 2 assists, a turnover, a block, and 2 steals. So at least he's doing a little bit of everything, but the fouls still need to come down. And then Dorian Finister played just 7 minutes, a little lower than normal with the return of Day-Day Ames in this game. Dorian missed his 2 shots, had an assist and a turnover. And then Taj Manning played 2 minutes and didn't record any statistics. So we ended up shooting over 50% from the field and 36% from 3 in this game. But the first half was pretty awful, and we needed to come back to beat a team that we should have blown out. There was no reason this game should have been as close as it was. This probably should have been at least like a 12-point win for us.
Especially at home.
Yeah, that's the part that bugs me. But this team certainly has a tendency to play to its competition, I think, or at least how it perceives its competition. And we play up when we're facing a highly regarded squad, but when we have a game that on the surface isn't as interesting, it seems like this year there's no one that's really pushing the team to really get out there and do more until you're halfway through and you're in danger of losing to a pretty bad team. So it's pretty frustrating at times, just because I know that this team is probably better than that, but a win is a win still, but you'd prefer to have a more convincing win against a less quality opponent.
Yeah, you do. All right, well, here's the game that we probably don't want to spend much time on. It's the Iowa State game. K-State ended up losing 78-67. It was much closer than the score actually indicates. I think the best way to describe this game is, if you can't tell by the tone of voice, I'm still a little sore. Granted, this is only a little less than 24 hours after the fact that we're recording this. I tweeted about this, but Connor and I, after the game, genuinely sat on our couch, said maybe less than 20 or 25 words to one another for about 30 to 40 minutes, because anything that we would have said would have ended up being shouted. And not at each other, not because we were angry at each other. We've never been angry at each other before in our lives. But, jeez, man. I don't even know really where to start with this game. I mean, you could start from the top with the controversies. You could start from the top that we lost. You could start from the fact that our big players, other than Arthur and Cam, didn't do anything. You could talk about the foul trouble. You could talk about the lack of fouls. You could talk about Jerome Tang getting upset. I've heard like 14 different reasons why he was upset.
The reason that's being reported right now by the more respected journalists in the K-State media sphere seems to be that there was an Iowa State staffer that was monitoring our huddles and sending information back to the Iowa State staff. So they were pretty much just doing what Michigan did, from what I can tell. Michigan in football, that is. So I understand being pretty upset about it. There's definitely some interesting theories going around on Twitter. That's what it is. I guess that speaks to the danger of talking about things that you don't know anything about. But it was probably one of the most impassioned moments that we've ever seen from Coach Tang, because you throw that controversy on top of what was a uniquely officiated game, then I'd be pretty upset too. And it takes Coach Tang quite a bit to get to that point, anyways. And you just keep building it up over the course of a game. It gets pretty tough to hold it in. The tech, I saw another angle of it, and I was kind of surprised that they teed him up for it, because it wasn't even the official that he was yelling at that gave him the technical foul. That was a guy that was
like 40 feet away.
Yeah, something like that. And there wasn't a whole lot from Tang that he hadn't been doing already. So I guess they were just giving him that for just like a culmination of it. But it was pretty disappointing officiating performance. I've watched a lot of K-State games at Allen Fieldhouse, and I think that this probably, in terms of consistently being that bad, I think was probably the worst. I don't know if there was an individual call that I could say would be like the worst of the worst from Allen. Like there was nothing like the Zvi Mikhailuk like 4 steps travel thing.
I don't know. The Dorian taking an elbow to the face was pretty bad.
Nothing. There just wasn't anything that matched the situational importance and just how egregious. But that was horribly egregious still. And the missed call with the guy tripping on David Gassan's like shoe, and Dave getting called for a block on that. There were also some pretty bad calls that went our way as well. Like there was a time where I can't remember who it was that got free throws off of it, but they called a body foul on a layup, and the replay showed that like Iowa State's guy didn't even touch our guy, and I was like, it was horrendous officiating both ways, and I hope the Big 12 is a little bit ashamed of it, because it was a game that should have been really, really great between two teams that clearly really wanted it. And it was a lot closer than the final score indicated, because there were multiple times that this was tied late in the second half, and it really only got out to that high of a lead just because of free throws and the technical foul late. But I feel like we were really robbed of a fantastic basketball experience, because the refs took this game and it ended up lasting 2.5 hours, which is way longer than a basketball game should be lasting in regulation. Because they called like almost 50 like fouls or something in this game. It was definitely over 40, because K-State had 26
and 20, so 46.
Yeah, so pretty awful. I know at one point K-State had like 9 fouls called against them on 10 possessions, which again, sometimes teams foul a lot, but that's just a little ridiculous, I think. But that was one of the big concerns about going into Hilton, is that Iowa State's really good at working the officials, and when they play away from Hilton, they don't get that same benefit. I imagine the return game that's going to be played on March 9th at Bramlage is going to be particularly energized.
I think that's a generous way of putting it.
Yeah. But this was a game that, despite the creative officiating and the technical foul and everything that was going on in it, K-State still, I think, lost on its own merits. I think that we had many opportunities to really take this game and take a lead, which I think would have really changed the psychology of this game, but we never actually led in this game. We tied it quite a bit, but we just kept breaking free throws. And Iowa State obviously took way more free throws than we did, but we didn't convert at the rate that we needed to. Like, they took 39 free throws in this game. We took 23. But, I mean, Dave missed like 3 in a row at one point. Tyler missed one at one point. And that's like one of his best qualities right now, is that he's supposed to be nails at the free throw line. We had many opportunities to win this game in spite of the officiating, which would have made it all the more satisfying, I think. because those are the best wins, when everything is going against you and you're on the road and you win anyways. We had the opportunity for kind of an all-time K-State victory. I think that says a lot about the staff and this team, that we were in that position in the first place. It's very disappointing that we didn't win it regardless, but I didn't come away from this game, especially from the second half, with a lesser opinion of this team.
I didn't leave with a lesser opinion of the team. Connor, how many times have you witnessed me get so mad at a game that I've gone quiet? Because normally I get louder.
Not many that I can think of.
This was one of the few games where I went quiet. Like, borderline stone quiet. And anyone who has met me knows how rare that is. And am I frustrated with the team? Absolutely. Just straight out, some of the guys needed to have better games. I'm really tired of being nice about Tyler Perry and his performance. Calling him and his performances here at K-State a disappointment is a massive understatement. I can't even say that I'm tired of losing, and I think that's the worst part. I'm tired of this team being the Pittsburgh Steelers of Big 12 basketball, where they play up and down to their competition. And I'm really angry at like the Iowa State fan base just in general, which, they're dirty, classless, trashy people anyway. So, I maybe I shouldn't have expected any less, but I'm a fan of chirping. I'm a very big fan of chirping. Connor can confirm this. In fact, talking smack is one of the 4 things on this earth that I genuinely think I'm extremely good at. But it gets to the point where lines are crossed, and I think that's all I'm going to say. I think there are certain times where lines are crossed. And moving on from that, the officiating was disgusting. When you have to separate a referee, when a player has to separate a referee from another player, I've never seen that happen before.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking when you told me about that, because, normally it's the other way around. You have to separate a player from a referee, not separate a referee from a player. And there is a difference there. So that was pretty shocking to hear about, because at one point someone had to separate a referee from Finister.
Yeah, Jerry Bohannon, Jerry Pollard ended up getting in the face of Dorian Finister. Dorian Finister looks, I'm like, dude, what the hell are you doing? And Tyler Perry has to get between the two of them and kind of like shoo Pollard away. What? And then, of course, it's just bad optics that later Dorian Finister catches an elbow to the face. Pollard should have the call, and conveniently he's just not looking.
Yeah, which I don't think those two things are related.
Oh, I don't either, but it's horrible optics.
Yeah, I think Pollard, I think if anything else, it just lends itself to the fact that maybe this isn't what he's cut out for anymore. Because there's no reason to be looking away in a situation like that. In a close game, in a game that's been extremely physical as well. It's gotten near chippiness at times.
In a game that you've been quick on the whistle before.
Yeah, that's the sort of game where you really shouldn't be looking away from the action in the middle of it. You need to be keeping your eyes on the court, unless, I don't know what someone said to get his attention, or if anything. But it was a pretty embarrassing performance, I felt, from the officials, because there's not a whole lot of consistency, it felt like, on what could be considered a foul, what wasn't. The only time I remember there being much consistency was when we got some free throws off of a phantom foul, and Iowa State went down to the other end and got the exact same call where we just did not touch them and they got free throws too. I can stomach that. That's just a makeup call, but I'd rather you just not make the stupid call in the first place and just leave both as no calls. But I don't know. I know officiating is a tough job, but it's when it's bad, it really sticks out. And it was a very disappointing performance across the board. So hopefully it gets better. But I'm very hopeful that we will not be seeing much Jerry Pollard the rest of this year.
If I see him again, I'm gonna go ballistic.
Yeah, I was pretty thoroughly disappointed. Left me really aggravated with the result of the game. But, if you want to look at it with a glass half full, I do think Iowa State is a good basketball team. And I do think that we showed a lot of grit in getting back into that game. And the cards just didn't quite fall our way late in the game. And things just kind of spiraled out of control after a little while. But, we were really right there in a game where in the first half it didn't look like we belonged. We were getting destroyed in the first half. And the second half, we really figured it out offensively and looked a lot better. So, we're sitting at 4-2 in Big 12 play right now, which is a lot better than I thought we'd be sitting at. We have a win over number 9 Baylor, and our 2 losses have been a 1-point loss to a good Texas Tech team, and then an 11-point loss on the road at Iowa State, which was really a lot closer than an 11-point loss. So, we should be in a better spot than we are right now, but it's time to move forward, I guess, because there's
more basketball to be played.
Yeah, but it's not going to get any easier.
No. Speaking of not getting any easier, playing at Houston Saturday and then going to play up against Oklahoma, granted in Manhattan. That's a really tough stretch. And, I believe in this team's grit to, have a few teeth knocked out, but still, sometimes in a very literal sense, to have a few teeth knocked out, but still end up fighting. Anything can happen. I don't see us winning the Houston game.
Yeah, that would be pretty shocking. I'll take it, but
we take those every day.
That is not my expectation going down to Houston, just because they are just such a tough team defensively that we're gonna need to have a pretty foolproof plan going into to that. But I don't know. I'm putting most of my emotional stakes on the women's game on Saturday. So
yeah, I've been more emotionally invested in the women's game since, honestly, probably the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair statement, especially for me. I think since the first Iowa game, and that's not a diss to the men's team. That's just that this women's team is just so much fun to watch, which will be at the women's game this Saturday against BYU. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm very excited because they're, again, just so much fun to watch, and the crowds have been really great. So it should be really exciting. Try and get an opportunity to get out and watch them because they're absolutely worth the price of entry, which is not prohibitive. So make a day out of it and go watch some great basketball.
Yeah. And before we sign off, do the outro, I think it's worth noting that LSU is currently beating number 1 in the country, South Carolina, by 3 with 6 minutes left in the third quarter. So we're probably going to go watch that game after this. But Connor, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I do not.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I'm at ACEdward00.
I am at Condabaltazar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store or use our supporters link, both of which are in our Twitter and podcast bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.